was a bit confused with the release date of this film because I thought from the trailer I thought it was like February 10th. It was only rewatching the trailer that I found out that it was on February 17th, meaning this was postponed a week because of the success of Pathan. So I was a bit confused by that because I was under the impression that it was on February 10th. Anyways, I watched the movie Shehzada, which is a remake of the 2020 film Vaikunthapurramuloo, and this movie is directed by Rohit Dhawan, and the Telugu movie, the Telugu original, was directed by Trivikram Srinath. Now, what do I say about this film? Vaikunthapurramuloo. It's a movie that I really like. I already made a video on that. It's one of my oldest videos in the channel, but I have very fond memories of Vaikunthapurramuloo. It's a movie that no matter how many times I rewatch, I still have that same experience as if I'm watching it for the first time. It has a lot of rewatch value. So when I heard that Kartik Aaryan is going to take on the role of Allu Arjun's character, I was both optimistic and pessimistic. Optimistic because, I feel like he could do the role well if he's directed well enough. And the other side was my pessimistic side, thinking like, no, he would never match up to Allu Arjun. But I felt like he could come close. It was either him or it was either Sushant when he was alive. Those two were my number one choices. And now that Sushant is no more, I felt like Kartik Aaryan could do well. He would never match up to Allu Arjun's style and charisma, but I felt like he can come close. Like he could be at least if he could be at least 10% as entertaining as how Allu Arjun was, without trying to copy him, but doing his role in his own way, then I felt like he could have done the role really well. And that's where I felt like this movie missed the mark. This is not a good remake. I would never watch this film again. I liked only two things in this movie, and one of which is going to definitely get some hate on my part, but hey, these are my thoughts on the film, and I would sure like to see your thoughts in the comments. I liked Paresh Rawal as Valmiki. In this entire film, he is the only character that I felt was better here than in the original. I felt like Paresh Rawal is the only one who surpassed the original counterpart, which was done by Murli Sharma. He doesn't have that, what do you call that? Lisp or not? I don't know. No, it's not a lisp. Like Murli Sharma does that, this thing, and he talks like this. Paresh Rawal speaks normally, but he does have the limp. I felt like that kind of enhanced the performance in some way because I never felt like that thing was needed in the original, now that I think about it. But it was fine. He's the only character that I felt was better than the original. Kriti Sanon was fine for the kind of role she got. I mean, if you've seen the original, then you would know she's just the love interest. And for that requirement, she fit the bill fine. And Manisha Koirala, who portrays Tabu's role in this movie, does also a very fine job. If you've seen the original and you're watching their performance, I can understand them not being on the same level as them. But these three people are the only characters in this movie that you won't be as disappointed if you watched the original. If you haven't watched the original, then these three people might be the highlights of the film for you. They were for me at least, and I watched the original countless times. And that's where all my positives lie. The rest of the characters and the scenes, songs, all of them are so underwhelming that it's gonna take me a whole lot of time. This thing is going to be like 30 minutes. So yeah, let me shorten it out for you. Sushant's character in this movie, he's a fucking cartoon. I hate that. There was certain calmness to him. There were motivations for why he's not doing the things he's doing. They made him childish in this movie, and I don't understand why. He's the character that frustrated me the most because they completely missed Sushant's character in this film, and I hate it. I hate that character. I hate what they done to him. And speaking of characters, Nivetha's character is completely absent in this film. Like, she doesn't even exist in this version. She was the reason. Like, her role was small in the original, but her role was significant. And speaking of being portrayed as cartoons, Harshavardhan and Sunil's characters in this movie, both of them are also cartoon characters. Not for the sake of comedy though, like nothing they did was entertaining or funny in any way. Yeah, they were just cartoonish, just for the sake of being cartoonish, I guess. The villain in this movie, Samuteragani's counterpart in this movie, Sunny Hinduja, is not at all convincing as the villain. Like, you tell me whether a guy like that, like from what he's shown in the film, he looks like a bodybuilder. Like, one of the first scenes is him hitting a punching bag. That's just a guy inside, but still. He's this he's this young-looking bodybuilder who carries a very old umbrella. It never made sense to me. Whereas if you look at Samuteragani's character, it's very clear that a guy like that, with the age that he's in, would carry an umbrella like that. The songs are also very underwhelming. I did not care for any of these songs. I don't think anybody's gonna remember these songs after like a month. The Shehzada title track was placed a bit awkwardly, and I kind of understand why it was placed, but that song kind of took away from the emotional weight of the scene though. There is an unnecessary addition of character dealer 2.0, which is placed at the end of the film. I don't see the reason why, but it's there, and I don't think it was better than Salman Khan's version, but it was fine. Rohit Aman decided to remove some of the most iconic scenes from the original, and I don't understand why. And if those scenes are not removed, then they are done extremely poorly. The boardroom scene, when Allu Arjun dances to the tunes, is completely absent in this film, which was a huge missed opportunity according to me. Like, you could have done a Bollywood version of that scene, and it would have been one of the most memorable scenes of this film, and they removed it. I don't understand why. And that scene when Jairam slaps Allu Arjun and says, know the value of lies, and Allu Arjun will say that any relationship that is built on truth will be rock solid. That scene, it's done so poorly here. Like, you don't get the same emotion compared to the original. The original was heartbreaking. It was very emotional. You felt what they felt. Here, that's completely absent. The dialogues and the editing is also some of the more disappointing parts. The dialogues are taken directly from the Telugu film, and it either doesn't work with the Hindi language, or it was delivered very poorly. And the editing in this film is done so haphazardly. The comedy in the film is also very weak. If you haven't watched the original, then let me tell you with utmost certainty that the comedy in this film is far inferior to Ala Vaikunthapurramuloo. The only other drawback of this film is Kartik Aaryan himself. He does good work in the dramatic parts of the film. Like, whenever there's a very serious dramatic scene, he does that job really well. But he could never match or even come close to Allu Arjun's style and charm. That is something Kartik Aaryan completely missed, and I kind of blame Rohit Dhawan for this, because if he was directed well, I have full confidence that if he was directed well, then I felt like he could have at least come close. He wouldn't match up to him, like he would never be on that same level as a seasoned actor like Allu Arjun, but he would have come close enough that it would have been enjoyable at least. And that's where I felt that the movie missed the mark completely. I felt like if it was in the hands of a more competent director, or a much better director, or even if Trivikram himself decided to direct the remake, like this movie, it would have been far better off. Even with the same cast, it would have been far better off. And it would have at least matched up. Like it would have been like watching the two different Jersey films. Like both of them are very enjoyable, even the Shahid Kapoor one and the Nani one, and both felt like two different films. Like even though they're the same film, the feeling of both films was somewhat different, and I kind of expected the same here. And I don't mind changes being done to a remake. In fact, I encourage it, but those changes should not affect the overall story, like like the emotional weight of the story. Like the story should not be affected by the changes. The core emotion of that story needs to be maintained even if you make the change. And this one just couldn't do that. Now, as a remake, I say this film is a complete failure. I love watching I love Vaikunthapurramuloo. As I mentioned before, I've watched it countless times up to this point. There's a lot of rewatch value in that movie, and that is completely absent here. The only thing good in this movie is Paresh Rawal's performance and Kartik Aaryan's performance in some of the dramatic parts. That's pretty much it. Aside from that, this entire movie is a failure. And even as a solo film, even if you consider this as a solo film, it's still underwhelming because this is at best a one-time watch, something which you're gonna forget about within a short span of time. It just adds to the sadness. That's it. This film turned a wholesome family entertainer into a caricature of what the original represented. If you're a fan of Kartik Aaryan and Kriti Sanon, then I recommend you watch it on OTT once. If you really want my recommendation, I highly recommend you watch the original instead. I feel like you can find it in the OTTs, or I think the dubbed version is available. I say just watch the original, but if you are a fan of Kartik Aaryan and you would like to watch his films, this is a one-time watch. Enjoy it, I guess. All the alcohol is in my liver. I guess I lost and you're the winner. Missing your touch, you were a good kisser. I was born a saint, but now I'm a sinner.